Hello, my name is Andrea. Welcome back. And today I want to share with you a little bit about my first impressions of using Ambleside Online, what has surprised me and what has been a challenge and what has been easier than I expected. So I'm really excited about all of these things to share with you today. We started doing classical education. I used mostly Memoria Press, but then I started integrating in some Charlotte Mason techniques. And then I also, while I was doing like a complete year of Memoria Press last year, I kind of integrated in some of the Ambleside Online books from their book list. But the books that I integrated in were mostly like history books. I had started reading Our Island Story to both of my kids kind of over lunchtime, just because I was like, well, we moved to England. This is a great book to read no matter what. And so I was doing these things, but not necessarily going along with the Ambleside Online schedule. Well, now we just here in England, we just started the third term. England uses the 3-term system for school where they start basically September 1st and then they go through Christmas and have like a 2 to 3 week break. And then they start in January and go through Easter and have an Easter break of about 2 to 3 weeks. And then they start back up around now and go through like July. And then they have about a month off before they start again in August. So those are the 3 terms. And so it kind of makes sense for me to set up my homeschool schedule along those lines. And that's also how Ambleside Online does it as well. So we as a family had essentially finished up most of our curriculum from Memoria Press anyway. And so I've started now this term 3 with my kids, and I have just been doing completely Ambleside Online stuff. So I'll start here with just saying some of my expectations versus the reality of actually doing the Ambleside Online schedule. My expectation was that the reading might be a little too much. We might be getting confused about what story we're in because there's a lot of books that you're reading through at the same time. And I've just never been that kind of a reader. I'm kind of like, I'm reading through one book, then I just don't feel right about starting another book until I'm done with the book that I'm reading. And maybe I just have too much of kind of a linear mind. It has been interesting and a little bit freeing, I will say, to start reading just multiple books with the kids. So I've actually started to enjoy it. It was a little hard at first to say like, well, now we're going to read out of the Blue Fairy book, and now we're going to read out of Trial and Triumph, and now we're going to read out of Our Island Story. But I, as well as my kids, have totally been able to compartmentalize all the stories and remember what was going on. I think mostly due to narration. Every time we read something, we talk about it together. We kind of tell back to each other things that happened, details that we remembered, if any of those details reminded us of any other story. So it's been very enlightening to see that we and I am capable of being into multiple books at the same time. And it's actually kind of exciting for me. I'm like, well, maybe I can just go ahead and start writing another book on my own without finishing up the one that I'm kind of struggling through right now because I'm not really enjoying it. So that's what I expected. But also another thing that I am loving right now that I did not expect at all was how much we were all really going to love the fairy tales. The books that I had added into our schedule when we were just doing Memoria Press type stuff, the books that I was adding in and supplementing with were mostly basically the history books, Our Island Story, Trial and Triumph, things like that. And I kind of just discounted the fairy stories. I'm not going to get into the Just So storybooks. I'm not going to get into the Blue Fairy stuff. It's not really necessary. And I was absolutely wrong. I'm almost thinking that it's more important to read these fairy stories than anything else, because now I have added in just getting started on doing the readings. I know that we're behind, but that's okay. We are starting doing the readings out of the Blue Fairy book and some other ones that I can't think of right now. But they have been just amazing. I could not believe how deep they were. And also my kids have just been riveted. I've been reading to both my first and my third grader the same time, even though it's mostly just on my first grader's reading list, like the fairy tale stuff. But it's been just as good for my son, and I'm glad that he is hearing these since he didn't get them when he was younger. Today we were just reading about the Prince Darling story out of the Blue Fairy book. And he was enthralled. So was my daughter, and so was I. I mean, I was like, what is going to happen next? And they didn't quite see the bigger picture. What was really hard for me is to not be like, don't you see how the ring that pricks him every time he does something bad is, it's just like how the Bible is for us, on how it shows us where we're wrong, and how it'd be easier to just throw away the Bible and feel like you're fine with, but then it turns you into a monster. So I'm not that. It's what is hard for me on these fairy stories is I feel like they're so deep and full of imagery, but I don't want to just completely ruin it for them. Like for them, they're really just enjoying this fairy tale, and I'm enjoying it for completely different reasons. But so it has been just wonderful. Oh, another thing that has really surprised me that is going really well is recitation and memorizing poems. I did not place a lot of emphasis on that, even just in my own mind, that this would be something that is useful. But now I see that it really is. I am shocked at how my 6-year-old daughter is capable of memorizing like a 4 stanza poem, and in not that long of amount of time. And she really just blossoms when she does it. She's very proud of herself. She likes to work on it. It helps with her reading because once she memorizes a poem, she recognizes those words elsewhere when she's reading and expanding vocabulary. And I was wrong about the necessity of memorizing poetry and reciting that in front of people. That has been an amazing intro to using Ambleside Online. And so we've really been loving that as well. What has actually been the most challenging so far for me? It's also something that I love, but it's still challenging, which is nature study. I mean, we get out and we do our nature study, but what is challenging is just that I am so not knowledgeable about what these trees are called, and so I feel like I just have to look up every single little thing. I never know how to answer their questions, and so I just feel totally inadequate on doing it with them. But I mean, we are doing it. And it is something that we all really enjoy. That's just the toughest one for me because it doesn't really come to me naturally, and I need a lot of outside help with it. I think that it's definitely a place to grow, is to do the nature study. Another thing that has been challenging, but it is also good and kind of freeing, is to keep, I find it difficult sometimes to keep the lessons short. The Charlotte Mason method of teaching is that if lessons go on too long, you're just wasting your time because nobody's paying attention. Nobody's retaining anything. And so really just like a 15 to 20 minute lesson is all you should do. And so that has been interesting, especially when it comes to language. Like I would always make our language lessons take 30, 45 minutes, something like that, because that's just what I felt like you needed to do in order to learn this language. But I am seeing how when I cut it down to 15 minutes, we're learning almost just as much, if not more, if that's even possible. So what I have also been doing recently that has been a bit of a change with using Ambleside Online is, since we're wanting to study Latin and Spanish every day, I am wanting to mix in some variety so that it doesn't get too stale. And for Latin with my son, I've always just used Memoria Press. And it's great and it works really well for him. But I've also just recently added in this Lingua Latina per se illustrata. And it's a book that's completely in Latin, but you can understand it from the very beginning. It's kind of a brilliant way of introducing new language and new grammar in an order where you get it through the context of it. And he's actually really enjoyed it. He's only done a few lessons so far, but it is enough of a shakeup to keep things interesting. And I know that Charlotte Mason said somewhere that a change is as good as a break from a subject or something that you're trying to learn. So sometimes just changing things up and not just doing the same Latin lesson over and over again is kind of unique and interesting. So I've been doing that with Latin, and I have also been doing that with Spanish with both of my kids as well. So we mostly use Pimsleur Spanish, which is wonderful, but they are 30-minute lessons, and sometimes it's a lot. With Pimsleur, since it's made for adults as well, sometimes for my 6-year-old, I'll usually repeat a lesson like 2 or 3 times with her, just so that I'm not moving too fast. But since they are 30 minutes, sometimes she gets a little bored with it and she doesn't want to do it all the time. So I've been doing some shorter lessons with her and with my son to kind of mix things up a little bit. So we'll do Pimsleur, we'll do some exercises out of getting started with Spanish. Some days I'll just read a story to them in Spanish and we'll play a game, like a bingo game or something in Spanish. And I've also recently gotten these from Simply Charlotte Mason, the Speaking Spanish with Miss Mason and Francois. And it's kind of like the original method of how Charlotte Mason taught foreign language in her schools. It's been interesting to read about her and her methods of teaching language, how her students would graduate knowing Latin and a couple or a few modern languages. And you're just like, oh my goodness, how did you do that? And you kept the lessons so short and you were learning multiple languages at the same time. Well, I mean, these books really kind of explain it. I also printed off, because I'm a crazy person. Let me show you. I couldn't find a copy of it to buy, but on the public domain, whatever you can look up, you can get books. And this is the original of The Art of Teaching and Studying Languages by Francois Guyon, I think is his name. So I printed it off so that I can actually read what he says about teaching and studying languages. And this is the guy that Charlotte Mason was inspired by and how to teach language. I always like to go back to the original source on like, yeah, well, who inspired Charlotte Mason on how to teach languages and how is that so successful? So it's interesting to start breaking into this. I'm not very far into it, but I'll let you know if I pick up any interesting tidbits through reading through that. But it has been kind of good to go through a few of the exercises with my kids, with me as well. It's been good. And again, they really love the recitation part. And the recitation, learning a simple Bible verse, but in Spanish, and they know exactly what it means, has been really helpful to them. And so it's just amazing on the things that I might have just skipped over are actually like the most important little nuggets that have really helped my kids flourish. So that has been wonderful. So will I continue on using Ambleside Online? I think absolutely yes. I do. I get a lot of comments on my videos saying you should look into the children's tradition. And I will say that it looks amazing. And it looks like it's very much in my line of thinking. At this point, kind of just like how I was last year with like, I just need to go with one plan and stop looking at all the other plans. I'm like, I have all the books ordered. Let me just do Ambleside Online. Maybe I will, change over to the children's tradition at some point. I don't know. But I definitely love the classic. I love all different types of classical education. I mean, I just think that if more of us did it, even in different varieties of ways, that it's all good. I did just want to address that because that's probably my most frequent comment that I'll get is like, have you looked at the children's tradition? Because you sound like that's your thing. And I agree. I totally agree. So anyway, that I'll look into it more later. But at this point, I will continue on with the Ambleside Online schedule and learn about all the other things as we go as well. One thing though that has been difficult was I think that the book is called, it's Parables from Nature. While I am loving it, my kids just sit there with this blank expression on their face, and at the end, they're quite literally, I don't get it. And yet, I can't hardly get through one of the readings without tearing up or crying somehow because it's so poignant for me. And what I'm struggling with is if I should continue on with it and just let them kind of try to soak in what they can, or if I should maybe just hold off for a couple of years. I don't know. That's kind of the one book on the Ambleside list at the moment that I'm wondering if I should continue or not, because I don't want to waste their time. If they're just not getting it at all, then maybe I save it for 5th grade or something. Let me know below if you have any thoughts on that, if you've read that with your kids and they were maybe only picking up 10% of it, but maybe that 10% is worth it. I don't know. So that's the one thing I don't know if I'm going to keep up with or not. Another thing that has been so surprising, particularly about the fairy tales, is I'll just share a quick story with you. So we were at church on Easter, and our pastor just made this passing comment about how, oh yeah, when they do Easter baskets with their kids, they attach a long string to it and put it all throughout the house, like a thing of yarn, a skein of yarn. And they'll put it all throughout the house, and they have to like follow the string in order to get to their Easter basket. And I was like, that is such a brilliant idea. And I went up to him afterwards because I also know that they do classical conversations. And so I'm like, I have to know, was that from The Princess and the Goblin? And he just looks at me kind of blankly. I'm like, you know how she had the string from her finger and it would lead her out from, the cave and save her when she's is that where you got it? And he was like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it was just something fun that we do. Now, I haven't asked his wife yet, but I bet that she's read one of these fairy tales where there was a string or a clue leading you to the right path, because it stood out to me so much. I was like, Princess and the Goblin. Yes, absolutely. That's an exact description of what happened in The Princess and the Goblin. And we were just, like I said, we were reading Prince Darling the other day, where he has this ring that hurts him and pricks his finger when he does the wrong things. And again, it's like this clue that's directing you in right behavior. That is such a great idea for an Easter basket, that you have to follow the physical clue to get to it. And so we did that. We usually save our Easter baskets until after church, just so that our morning isn't completely crazy. And it's something that I think that will continue. What was funny about that was that at first the kids hated it. They just wanted to go straight to the Easter basket. They did not understand why they had to go through all of this work to get to their basket. And at the point where I was about to be like, you know what, just never mind, just go to the basket, they actually started to get it. And they're like, oh wait, no, it goes through here. And they started to understand the challenge of it. And I just shut my mouth and I let them go with it. And so then by the time they got to their Easter basket, it was such a reward that they followed the clue and they stayed on the path and they found their prize. I don't know. It's just something that I never would have thought of without reading these fairy tales. Even if I had been sitting in church and heard that story, I just would have been like, that sounds like a lot of work. Why would you do that? That's a dumb idea. So just this whole new world, I feel like, is opening up in front of me on all of these stories and things that I had never heard of before. And it's just been wonderful. It's been just as good for me as it has been for my kids. And I do think that my kids are really enjoying. I almost feel like I'm cheating sometime with the fact that they're learning geography from a book that they're really enjoying. It just doesn't feel quite right. But the fact, like, they're so into Paddle to the Sea, but now they love to study their map and to see all the Great Lakes, and they know all the Great Lakes by their shapes and what cities are around and how, what those cities do and where the mills are and stuff. And just from this one book, but since it's such an interesting book for them, they're learning. Yeah, it almost, like I said, it feels like a cheat to just read a story for 10 minutes and that was geography, but yes, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful for all of us, and we'll continue to do it. I do hope that you enjoyed this. What I was wanting to put out today was all of my second grade picks for my daughter for what we're going to be using for her individual stuff for next year. But some of my stuff hasn't come in yet, and I've been watching my tracking numbers and stuff, and I didn't really want to just talk about it without having the actual book here, and I wanted to make sure that I looked through the stuff to make sure that it was something that I would definitely recommend. I should be getting that in the next couple of days, and so I'll record that video. So I hope that you subscribe and you'll see all of that coming up. But anyway, I do hope that this was fun for you to listen to just hear our adventures with using Ambleside Online completely for the first time. If you have anything below that you want to share or ask, I hope that you do. I love reading all of your comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.